Good afternoon. My name is Chris Curry, and I am with Families Together. It's an organization that serves families who have children with disabilities, and we are here today to present on Children Who Challenge. When I am out and about for Families Together, I spend a lot of time working with children with behavior problems, and I'm known as a behavior specialist. So that means I have seen children with a wide range of behavior problems, from children with very severe disabilities who have maybe just a problem where they're biting their hand, to children who are very high functioning with autism, who would be running around the room and jumping on the tables. And I would be called in to help parents and teachers learn to deal with those behaviors. So I'm going to do three things today. First thing we're going to talk about is how to understand behavior. Because if you don't understand children, you really can't help them with their behavior problems. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to teach them new behaviors, because that's what everybody wants. We want them to do what we want them to do. And the third thing is going to be very short, where we tell you about when you should probably go and get some expert help for your child, when perhaps the child's disability or the child's behavior problem is indicative of something that is beyond a parenting issue. So the first thing we want to do is just enjoy children. We want to enjoy the stretch. We had children, we wanted to have children, we chose to be a family, we thought this is going to be a really fun thing to do. And so we want to enjoy learning all the new things about children. So when your child decides he wants to be a ballet star and you thought he was going to be a football player, you're just going to enjoy that and think, well, that's kind of new. I didn't expect that. And you're going to really learn to love the children that you have. And sometimes that's difficult because you thought they were going to be just like you, and they probably are. And you probably need to love them anyway. And then you need to learn some new ways. Because children today have to face things and are exposed to things that you did not face and were not exposed to. So they are going to know things sooner than you knew them. They're going to see things sooner than you saw them. They're going to grow up very, very quickly. So you need to learn some new ways to parent those children that are in your life. You need to watch successful people. Sometimes your mother-in-law is going to be the best teacher you've ever seen for teaching you how to take care of your children. And sometimes that's going to be the person you want to watch and not imitate. So I want to show you a little video. And this video, you probably have seen it on YouTube, but it just reminds you that children are funny. And we really have to keep that in mind.
Charlie bit me. Ah. Ah! Oh, ouch! Ouch! Ouch, Charlie! Ow! Charlie, that really hurt. No, Charlie bit me. And that really hurt, Charlie, and it's still hurting.
The reason I like to watch that video is because you can't really describe why that's funny. Everybody laughs. Everybody thinks they're really cute. Everybody wants to, just know who those kids are and how their mom caught that moment on video, but no one really knows why is that funny. A child bit another child, and we all sit there and laugh at it. So there's something about working with children and understanding children and being around children that is different than being around adults, and you have to remember that. You're an adult, they're children, and that's a different thing. The last thing to remember is that kids grow up and they will pick your nursing home, so you really want to be nice to them. And I'm having a little trouble changing that slide, so I'm going to cue the gentleman in the back to change the slide for me. So you want to become an adult who gets it. We might have skipped a slide, but it's probably okay to do that. Let me see. No, we didn't. You want to become the adult who gets how to handle children. So you bring your baggage, you have tools. You've spent your whole lifetime learning about how to deal with life. You have some problems that are with you, you bring them into every relationship, you bring them into everything you're doing with your children, but you also have a lot of tools. The difference between you and a child is some kids come with baggage. Sometimes your children are very anxious, sometimes your children are kids that are just uptight about small things that you can't understand why that bothers them. Sometimes they're children that don't take anything seriously, they're just really laid back. And that's who they are and the baggage they bring to any situation. But they only have one or two tools. One of the favorite tools for a 2-year-old is to scream, to throw themselves down on the floor and yell and have a temper tantrum. Once they get to be 3, they might be able to say a few things, but kids don't have a lot of ways to tell you what they want. One of them is hitting, one of them is yelling, and the other one is running out of the room. Those are their main tools that they're going to use when things get really rough on them. And you have to remember that. They don't have a lot of tools. I can't understand why we don't throw ourselves down on the floor and yell anymore. I cannot figure out when that stops. At some point, you just know that you shouldn't do that anymore. Like when you go to Walmart and they say, I'm sorry, we sold the last one yesterday and you really needed that item. If you're 2, you will just lose it right there. But if you're an adult, you'll say, okay, and just feel really bad, and then go home and yell at your spouse. But you won't lose it in the store. So that's the difference between an adult and a child, how you handle things. So what we want to do is we want to create moments for children, and that's the main part of being a good parent, is creating those moments. We plan the birthday party. We spend weeks planning the birthday party simply so the child will walk in and go, and that's the moment you're going for, and that's it. You have to be willing to put that preparation in for that moment. The moment on Christmas morning when they come out and they see the present and go, that's it. It's just a moment. You worked really hard for that moment. You have to work hard for those moments every day. So dinner time has to have that moment where they look at dinner and go, oh, that's just what I wanted to eat. Thank you. That lunchtime, opening their lunch at school, when they walk in the door and they're wearing they got dressed themselves. Those moments are what you're working for with children. You, as a parent, create the moments. If you create enough moments, you have a pleasant day. Sometimes you'll just have 1 or 2 good moments, and that's okay. When you have kids that are challenging, you go for 1 moment a day, and that's good. The other thing you want to do is move away from the crises with a child. You don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on the crises. Things go wrong, they have a temper tantrum. We're not going to leave Walmart and have a long discussion in the car. Just leave Walmart, get back in the car, say, well, we're going to probably try that again another day and work on that a little bit before we challenge that event. But we're not going to spend a lot of time discussing it. They're children. They don't learn from discussions. You might find that about the people you work with when you have long discussions with them. They didn't learn from that either. They just listened, and suddenly you were just making a lot of noise. To a child, they didn't get that. They left the event all emotionally upset, and suddenly your response to that was just to keep talking and not to fix it. So they're not going to respond to that. Just move on. Just get past it and take care of it the next time. Find the gift in your child. Find the gift in everybody you're around, but especially in your child. Look at that child and go, I know there's something good here. I'm going to keep looking till I find it. Because you will find the gift. The child, my second son, Nolan, who I talk about a lot when I do presentations, because he's not here, and he sang Yankee Doodle to his kindergarten class with F sounds. And the teacher called me in and she said, he sang Yankee Doodle with F sounds. Had the whole class doing it. Now, if you go through that quickly in your head, you realize when you get to stuck a feather that you have now said a swear word. And he enjoyed the whole class doing it and brought it up. As soon as they did it, he said, you all just said a naughty word. And the teacher sat me down and started admonishing me as a parent. And I thought, find the gift, find the gift. And I looked at her and I said, great leadership skills, don't you think? He got your whole class to do it at one time. And she just said, I knew you'd find a positive spin on it. You really need to control him. I said, Well, I don't know where he learned it, and she said, well, he said his brother taught him. I said, oh, his brother would never do that. His brother's the good son, and his brother had. So these are things where you find the gift in your children, you learn to enjoy them, you learn to laugh. You don't take your kids for granted. The fact that they took out the trash one day doesn't mean they're ever going to do it again, but they do know how to take the trash out. The fact that they got dressed one day all by themselves and actually came down and were ready for school on time doesn't mean they'll ever do it again. And it's okay. They know how to do it. That's your job as a parent, to send them out there doing, I know he knows how to do it. Hopefully he'll do it when he needs to. But getting a child to do something every day consistently, that's really hard to do, and that's a different type of parenting that sometimes may not work for you. I've had parents with kids who are very difficult who had a hard time transitioning in the morning. They couldn't get up, they couldn't get dressed, and they couldn't get to school. School is a very tough thing to go to. And they said, you know, I just dress them in the morning. Don't tell the teacher. And I said, when you dress him, do you talk to him? He said, yeah. I said, is it a tender moment? He said, yeah, it's kind of nice. I dress him and he talks to me, and we're very close and very affectionate at that time. I said, then it's okay. Does he know how to dress himself? Yes, he does fine on Saturday mornings. I said, then don't worry about it. Use that moment to enjoy your child. And then if you really find that you and your child are not getting along and everything's a struggle, do something for someone else together. Go out and help at a food bank together. Go to a nursing home and bring little gifts for all the grandmothers and grandfathers at the nursing home. Just go do something with your child for somebody else. Rake somebody's lawn. Just have a good time together helping someone else. And that will really show you what a wonderful child you have. Whoops. Okay, I'm going to ask you to go back and show that video. And if they really can't do it, you need to teach them how to do it. If it's possible, ignore inappropriate behaviors. If you see a child running across the room, that's not the time to yell, stop running. It's also not the time to say, you're not allowed to run in here. You can't run in here. Don't talk to me like that. They just did it. They just absolutely did what you said they can't do. So obviously, you're wrong. They can do it. They just did it. So we want to make sure that we're ignoring that inappropriate behavior and going, okay, they just ran across the room, and it's church, it's full, it's Christmas Eve, they just dove over the altar. What am I going to do about that? Yelling, you're not allowed to do that, is not a good thing at this time. So then you're going to, do what you can to get the child back to where they belong and work on what they should be doing. We should be sitting. Everyone's sitting. You might want to be sitting too. What do you think? And just talk about what you want them to do, not what you don't want to do. Use positive terms that say what you want to see. Never mention what you don't want to see. Always talk about what you do want to see. If I said to everybody, and they will in the next slide, I think, tell you to think about an elephant. Well, there's one where we do that, and I'm going to tell you now, and you're all going to think about elephants way too early. But if I say don't think about the elephant, you're still going to think about the elephant. It doesn't matter. The word gets in your head, and that's what you do. For children, that's what they do. They think about what you tell them. We want to teach children the behaviors you want to see. We want to work with children to develop rules that make sense. So that's, as a parent, you teach them what you want to see. You give them rules that make sense. If it doesn't make sense to tell a 2-year-old, how did dad come up and say, my 2-year-old doesn't listen? I said, they don't do that yet. They just don't listen. They can't. They don't know you're talking. How would they know to listen? They don't know that what you're saying is very important. They don't care what you're saying. They're watching TV. They're pretty amazed with that. They're not going to listen. It's like they can't do that. He won't sit still. He can't. Look at him. Your child, absolutely. I've watched your child for 10 minutes. He can't sit still. Quit asking him to do that. He can't do it. If you want him to stay in one spot, make it a little bigger than sitting on a chair, and maybe he can stay there. So make the rule make sense for that child. He's not going to sit in the chair. Will he stay in a assigned area? Give him 2 chairs. Will he flip back and forth from one to the other? Give him a rule that makes sense to him. And then you have to balance every negative thing you say to a child with 4 positive things. Use this in your job. Anytime you say anything to someone which could possibly be construed as a criticism, even if it's a good thing, like, oh my gosh, you drank half your water. They think, well, that's a criticism. Now you have to say 4 positive things to that person. I like how you drink water. You didn't spill any. That's really good. 4 positive things to make up for the 1 negative thing that you've said. For teenagers, it's really important. If you say something negative to a teenager, and teachers do this all the time, they don't hear anything else you've said for the rest of the day. It's gone. They block you out. They will not hear anything you said because you said 1 negative thing, and that just cuts them like a knife. They're very sensitive people at those ages. So you have to say those positive things really quickly. Teach your children that. Say, if I say anything negative to you, you come up and say, Mom, you need to say 4 positive things to me. And they'll tell you. Then you'll realize you said something negative, because a lot of times you won't even know you did it. Really? Did that hurt your feelings? I'm sorry. I didn't even know that did. And then make family reinforcement plans. When your family does a really good job on something, have something that you reinforce and have a good time. Like, we worked really hard getting the house clean. Let's go out for pizza. But plan on doing that before you decide to clean the house. Now I'm going to focus on why. Why kids do what they do. Don't focus on the what. I don't care that they hit you. I don't care that they swore at you. I don't care that they're standing there and screaming their heads off at you. All I care about is why they're doing it. Because what they're doing, I can't change. I can fix why they're doing it, because that's something I can change. I can change the environment. I can change what's happening. I can change where they're at that moment. We can leave the store. I can fix that. I can't fix the fact that the 12-year-old is now screaming at me and swearing and using language I didn't know he knew. Can't change that, but I can change me. And the parts of me that I can change that'll influence him will be everything surrounding why he's doing it, why he's upset. First thing we have with little kids, and I don't know how old the children are, is, this is a child that, if we play this video, we're not going to fix this child. This is a tired child. I can't say stop crying. I can't say behave yourself. I can't say be quiet. Because she's tired. She's so tired. All I can do is put that child to bed. Or give that child, if they need something to eat, give that child something to eat. That's why they're doing it. She's tired. Can't say you shouldn't cry when you're tired. As adults, I've known adults, when they get hungry, they get cranky. They just get cranky. I don't get cranky when I'm hungry. I don't. I can go for days and be hungry and not get cranky about that. That's not something that makes me cranky. I get cranky when I can't find something. Then I get cranky. But if an adult's hungry and they're cranky, you have to feed them. I don't care how old they are. You have to put food in front of them because they're going to be cranky until you do. So anxiety is often the reason why kids have problems. And we really have to look at this nowadays more than ever, because we have so many kids on the autism spectrum, we have kids with ADHD, they get upset and they're anxious. And anxiety is often the why. Usually I don't deal with this until the end of it, but I really wanted to hit it hard today because I want you to go home and look at your kids and see if they're anxious about something. They'll be anxious if they don't trust that you know what you're doing. And that's a lot of kids don't trust that their parents know what they're doing, because the parents have made mistakes, serious mistakes. I took my kids to school the day there was a hurricane. I said, certainly they'll have school. Why wouldn't they have school? There's 2 trees knocked down. Big deal. Let's go to school. They never really trusted me about school after that. They were always questioning, are you sure there's school, Mom? Because there's a blizzard outside. I'm sure there's school. Certainly they'll take you. They learn where you're good at things and where you're not good at things. If you get lost a lot when you go places, your children learn that, and then they don't trust you to take them to a friend's house unless they've written down the directions. They learn how to use MapQuest very young. They'll also be anxious if they can't visualize what's coming up. And for kids on the spectrum or kids with ADHD, they really don't understand how things play out in a linear fashion. So they won't understand everything that's going to happen to get you to a certain point. So if you say to them, we're going to go we're going to go skiing next weekend, and it's summer. They don't know that you're going to get on a plane and fly to Switzerland. They don't know that. They don't understand it, they can't visualize that, and they will get anxious. And when kids get anxious, they kind of stop. I'll show you in the next slide all the things that kids do when they're anxious. And the other reason kids get anxious is there's too many steps in the process. So just cut it down to smaller steps. So it's, come on, get ready for school. For some kids, it's way too much. I know. Can you stand up? You're lying down in bed now. Could you just stand up? That's all I need, you standing up. That's good. All right. How about putting these clothes on instead of your pajamas? Can you do that? So it's one thing at a time. And we all do that in life. When things get overwhelming, we start breaking it down to smaller steps. I'm just going to take that one step, then the next step, and then I am going to get to school. Usually we can tell if kids are anxious about going to school if there's one article of clothing they won't put on, usually shoes or socks. Because once you put the shoes on, you're going. They will be fine, right? Get up, get everything done, right up to the shoes, and then the shoes don't feel good, can't get them untied, there's always something wrong with the shoes. My son, it was socks, could never get the socks on. They had bumps in them, dents, screaming about the socks. I went through 20 pair of socks, none of them were right. Because once you get your socks on, then the shoes come on, and then you're out the door. Really didn't want to go to school. So transition can be the why for most people when they get upset. So one thing we want to make sure when we're looking at transition is from a kid's perspective, the kids are engaged in the present. This is what I'm doing right now. This is where I am. And you know, you work with engineers, so you don't have to stretch far to understand this. It's what I'm working on right now. And you're coming in and saying, I want you to work on this. It's just not going to happen. I am here, I am engaged in this moment, and the hand's going to go out. When a child does that, they often get in trouble. Pay attention, you have to get ready to go to school. Once you're an adult, sometimes you get the option of not changing what you're doing at the moment. They'll let you stay in what you're engaged in. But you have to remember, they are totally committed and engaged to what they're doing. They are watching TV. So watching TV. They're not kind of watching TV. They're not watching TV while they're working on the computer. They are absolutely engaged in that moment. So to ask them to stop and do something new, the stopping is the problem. It isn't the doing something new, it's the stopping that knocks you over with transition. They can't stop. So you have to teach children how to stop. And the way you teach people to stop is practice. So you get kids engaged in something fun, and then you say, okay, we're going to practice stopping. And you literally say, stop doing that, push it away. How does that feel? Feels like I've got to finish making those Legos. Feels like I can't stop. Say, okay, just hang on, relax. You're going to get to go back to it. What would you do if you had to stop? What would you do if you actually had to put it away and go do something else? Where would you put it? And you walk through those steps. Well, I'd put it over here on my dresser. Okay, that's good. Put it on your dresser, leave it right out where you can see it, and you can come back to it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after school. But it does mean stopping. Doing what you're doing is preferable to change. It always is. Look at how many bad marriages there are. Trust me, change is hard. People will stay in a bad situation. They'll stay in a job they hate. And a child will continue doing a behavior that doesn't work for him because change is so difficult for us as human beings. People who can change easily, we say, oh, they're very mature, they can change. They can deal with change, it's always amazing. Well, it takes an unusual mind to be able to say, everything's going to be different today, but I'm going to be okay with that. Usually there are people that really don't know what's going on, so don't let them kid you. I think most people who really grasp the situation do not like to change because they know this situation over here, it's probably going to be worse. And that's what kids always think. So stopping something always makes you feel bad. It will always make you feel bad. It doesn't matter how old you are, change is hard. So keep that in mind when you say to a child, turn off the TV, we have to go to school now. You have just asked him to do the hardest thing that human beings can be asked to do. You've asked him to stop doing something and do something, and not only that, stop doing a preferred activity, do something less preferred. When you get up in the morning, you have to have the coffee, you have to have certain things that get you up in the morning. It's a routine. Why? Because what's the biggest transition of the day? Getting out of that bed in the morning. Some people say, I just pop right up. Don't believe them. They do not pop right up out of bed. They went to bed the night before, and their brain went through a whole series of steps. I'm going to get up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. They already transitioned before they went to bed at night. That's why they pop up in the morning. They went through it. The rest of us just went to bed and then woke up the next morning and went, oh my God, another day. Can't believe this happened again. So, and if you're a child, imagine that every day. It's like, wow, same thing. We're going to do it all over again. So in 5 minutes is the worst thing I see parents do. They go, in 5 minutes, we're going to do this. And people always say, warn the children that change is coming. Yes, I think you should prepare them. But you need to be honest with yourself. When you say, in 5 minutes, we're going to turn the TV off, most children look at the TV going, 5 minutes, she's going to start really yelling loud. So I am going to really watch hard now. And they block you out. If you don't believe me, ask your husband when he's engaged in a football game to say in 5 minutes we're going to turn the TV off. He will ignore you. He will zone in on the TV. And in his head, he'll be going, in 5 minutes she's going to really start yelling. And he won't turn the TV off. So here are the behaviors that you see in a child when they're anxious about transitions. One is the deer in the headlight behavior. They will just focus on whatever they're focused on, and you cannot get them off of it. The other thing kids will do is they can't find something. I can't go yet. I can't find this. I can't find my paper. I can't find my favorite pen. I can't find my glasses. I can't find my shoes. I can't find... People that lose things and can't find them are people that don't want to transition. Clothing doesn't feel right. They'll try on this jacket, they'll try on that jacket. Women are famous for this one. Ladies, I hate to pick on you, but women will go through several articles of clothing before they get out of the house, simply because they can't transition. They don't want to go. So they make sure they're wearing exactly the right thing, so that makes it better. Well, it's just a process to help transition. With children, someone upsets them. He looked at me funny. Quit looking at me, always to a sibling. Quit looking at me. Why are you looking at me? I'm not looking at you. Yes, you are looking at me. Look you're looking at me right now, and pretty soon they're to sit. We need to frustrate them. And then we need to say, tell me about it. How are you going to work through that? We need to teach kids to transition on cue. How do you teach people to transition on cue? You teach them how to ask permission not to transition. So when someone says, you got 5 minutes and then we're going to leave, you say, okay, I need 7. I need 7 minutes. The show's not over. I'll just let the show finish. It's got 7 minutes left, Mom. 7 minutes. Okay, it's 2 minutes. I'm good with that. You get your 2 minutes. People will be able to transition if they can ask for permission to change the parameters of it a little bit. Handling anxiety. How do you handle anxiety? How do you ask for help when you're stressed? I can't go to school. I'm not going to school and you can't make me. And you say, whoa, that sounds like stress. What's going on? We want a child to be able to say to you, there's a real mean kid at school that's bullying me. I don't want to go to school anymore. And you need to be able to say, not, I'll have to deal with bullies in life, not the response you need to give your child. You need to actually sit down and say, okay, I need to know everything that's going on with this. Let's work through it. You've asked me for help, and I'm going to give you some help. Following directions. There's nothing worse than giving someone directions and then having them do it wrong. And you say, well, why'd you do it like that? I just told you to do it differently. Well, I thought you meant. The best thing you can teach a child is when you give them directions, the child says, so I'm not sure about this part of what you just said. Could you clarify that? Teaching kids to clarify things is really good. Teaching kids to locate authority. Some people know the answers, some people don't. Do your kids know where to go to get those answers? Teaching kids to explain their problems and teaching kids to resolve conflict, very similar, being able to explain why you're upset. And I'm going to end with a video on the last part. This was number 3. What do you do when the child is really someone that might need some extra help? So you've learned how to teach children things today. You've learned to understand children a little bit better. But what happens when you run into a child and you say, that was really nice, Chris, but my child has something really I'm confused about, and I might need some extra help. How do I sort those children out? And a lot of those are children with sensory processing disorder or children with communication disorders. So I want to leave you today with a video on sensory processing disorder so that you can go, oh, so everything you said is great, but you're right. I need some more help than this. And if this is true, then you need to call Families Together, and we will give you some extra resources and help you find the answers to that. So let's play our last video.
Some kids are really bouncy and can't sit still. Some kids aren't very coordinated. Some see food as a pile of toxic goo that hurts their mouth and jangles their taste buds. School might be a mysterious place where things don't make much sense. If this sounds like you, you may have sensory processing disorder, and we're going to explain it here. Your body has 7 senses: vision in your eyes, hearing in your ears, touch in your skin, taste in your mouth, and smell in your nose. And you have 2 movement senses: your muscles and your sense of balance. In sensory processing disorder, these senses don't communicate right with your brain. Think of the nerves connecting your brain and senses as a set of roads. Those roads should be smooth superhighways so that the senses and brain can communicate fast. If you have sensory processing disorder, then some of your roads are bumpy and rough. You can also think of the senses as having a broken volume control. If the volume is too high, you will feel your senses too strongly. If the volume is too low, you won't feel sensation at all. In fact, you'll want more. Some kids overcome these problems as they grow older. Others need help. Help is usually occupational therapy, and it's fun. Occupational therapy helps build up the connections between your senses and your brain. The more you do, the stronger and smoother they get, kind of like paving those roads. After a while, you'll learn to slow down and sit still, to pay attention, to eat, to be comfortable and happy doing movement. It takes time. There's homework, too. The more you work at it, the better it gets.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to everybody today. I'd like you to take these 3 points home. Remember, you need to know why your child's doing what they're doing. You need to teach your child the behaviors you want your child to use. And if you run into something that seems like it's out of the ordinary, don't be afraid to ask for help and call Families Together. So thank you very much.